Autumn Larrick of OneMusicNetwork.com, formerly at KWOD here in Sacramento. You did Sound to Sac, a show I started in '92, but you were doing it in, what, '97 through 2003, right?
Yeah.
To the very end of KWOD under the ownership of Royce International Broadcasting. But tell me about Sound to Sac. Sound to Sac. Well, how was that for you?
It was really fun because there were a lot of just young kids loving music, and when you have a band, it's almost like it's a neighborhood. You know, everybody it's a community thing, like a you know, the aunt will make the flyers, and mom helps pay for the mic, and all the kids are doing all these extra jobs, pay for their equipment, and they go out and do a show at the boardwalk, and they would have, you know, their whole family there, everybody that at mom's work, and it was just a big, you know, support.
Family.
Yeah, and it was definitely...
David Conley got you the job, right?
Yes, yeah.
A great host. He was the original inspiration for the show. He had talked me into doing the show, so we ended up doing it starting in June '92. He became the host later on, but once you became the host, how did you decide what music to play from the local scene?
Well, see, that was harder for me because Dave is a musician, and I am not a musician at all. In fact, I believe in 6th grade, my violin teacher asked me to stop. Like, I just...
Well, violin's the hardest instrument to play. I mean, to really sound good, you have to be really dedicated to that. I played it for 3 months before I said, this isn't for me.
I took voice lessons. I fell off the stage in ballet. I was just not a musical person. I knew what I liked to hear. You know, I knew what entertained me and what entertained other people. And I had a good ear for that. But as far as something that is musically better put together than something else is something that I had to learn. You know, I couldn't tell if something was recorded better or not. And, you know, you learn when you're in radio for a while, you learn. So what I did was I had a bunch of interns that worked in music, like, or, you know, or...
So they went through the CDs.
I had, yeah. Well, I would get hundreds of CDs a day, and I'd, put them in piles of 10s and 20s, and I would go to our interns, let me know if you hear something you like. And then I would, listen to my own too. And I was also lucky you had built up a really large library, and Dave too, of really good music. And not one time as a host passed on to the next host did anybody ever not be supportive. Because I believe that I was co-hosting with Dave Carmichael for a while before I took over co-hosting, or just hosting by myself. And
this show was every Sunday night at 10 p.m., right?
No, it was at 11. The Buzz was at 10.
They moved it backward. When I started it was actually at 9 p.m.
The reason that we ended up moving it later and later is because we weren't just playing local music, we were interviewing local bands.
Okay.
And we're on the 27th floor of the Renaissance Building. And they had, 24-hour security. And when a bunch of kids with blue hair and nose piercings and tattoos across their foreheads show up...
This building had very conservative owners.
They did not want to let them in. So that was one of the things they agreed to this one time that we could have them in. And then after that, you have to deal with some bands are really talkative and, well, you've interviewed people before. They're talkative and they're interacting. And then others, you have to pull it out of them.
You have to entertain them.
And then sometimes you have a band that comes in just stoned out of their mind. And that's either a really funny thing or really scary. But you want to be on late at night so you can push that beep button. Yeah. Which is nice to go from that terrestrial radio, FCC, and all of the restrictions to One Music Network where I don't have those anymore.
Well, let's talk about that. You're here now and you get to do your own show. Tell me about your show.
Well, at the moment I'm doing 90s rock alternative. And it's kind of moved on to not just 90s rock alternative, we're putting in more of everything.
Like a wider mix of just all kinds of alternative?
Yeah, that and more, and some more rock too. I think that before 9/11, we were, as a nation, angrier and okay to be angry.
Metalheads.
Yeah, we hated stuff, and people were, in my area of rock and alternative, people were angry and they told you We're angry.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was a good thing we came together as a nation, and it was a huge tragedy, and we were on air, and when the towers went down, and we didn't know what was going to happen next. But
you were in a tower yourself.
Yeah, and everybody was very changed. Instead of, walking by your neighbor, you would shake their hand, and people became friendlier. But the music also became friendlier.
Meaner, I thought.
Really? I thought...
Not locally, but overall, Disturbed and those kind of bands got meaner sounding.
I just, before,
And,
you don't want to say...
Are you saying this
mean
affected
and
your selection for music?
Well, it affected the music I got. I felt that we got a lot less angsty, angry, and more loving, family, human. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes you want to headbang and rock out.
And roll, yeah. Because it's funny you describe it that way. My impression of KWOD after I left was that it got harder sounding. And that
it did.
I mean, when I was there, it was not this metal sounding thing.
It did get harder. But after 9/11, we became not instantly soft, but it was a lot more...
I know it went through changes all the time, and I mean,
it was a little...
It was a different era. It just became... The music industry actually was putting out all kinds of the same formulas, I thought, which is why, in my opinion, why record sales, CD sales, however you want it, fell hard, is there wasn't anything to rival the 90s. Like,
for me...
Pearl Jam and Nirvana, I mean, that and that whole scene, there was a lot of variety to that.
What do you feel about lyrics, though?
Well, lyrically, they had a message, and it was kind of anti-government, but at the same time, it was anti-corporate, even though they were both on big corporate labels. But what I liked about the 90s that wasn't there in the 2000s was there was a ton of variety, and a lot of the songs had a purpose other than buy my record. And 2000s, it became super commercialized.
I just felt like songs became more about, I want to have sex with that girl,
yeah,
or
that's commercialized.
Look at my...
Clear Channel wrecked a lot of stuff, but we'll get into that in another movie. And did you ever have a band where you played the CD and it actually led to something big? Just because you played...
UVR was a fabulous band. And I have a bunch of my little name, my little
really?
thing you mentioned.
They give you the credits.
They're great guys. They're I wish I would have been in it longer, and I wish I would have been a little more talented myself to find. It was always my interns that found the best stuff. I mean, and UVR is actually one that ended up in my pile because they looked cute on the band cut, the CD cover, and I listened and I'm like, oh, that's great. But a lot of, it takes a lot of time to go through each, and sometimes I've noticed, and maybe you did too, is they'll have 9 tracks or something on their CD, and there's just that one that is gold. It's just perfect. Mm-hmm. But you could have easily just skipped over it. I mean, so
true.
I have this huge pile of CDs that I can't get rid of because I just know there's something in there.
It takes so long, you're right, to go through all that.
Do you remember Birthday?
But you know what, we're gonna do some more of these interviews, but I want to wrap things up right now about onemusicnetwork.com. What can you tell me about what you love about this?
I get to play all of my favorite songs from the 90s Rock Alternative station, and I get to swear and have a total potty mouth, and I get to play uncensored songs. So 9 Inch Nails Closer, the whole animal is in there. And I'm having fun fighting with people that are like, I don't like that song.
Do they? Do people call you on the phone, or how do you communicate with
At
people?
the moment, people are contacting me at Radio Autumn on Twitter, and I'm getting a large Facebook messages.
Awesome.
And I didn't even know that people knew. I guess I'm not a good Google hunter yet, but they found me. And then MySpace.
Okay.
I still have, MySpace started in the 90s.
That's right.
I think I have 3,000 friends still at MySpace.
All right. Well, Autumn, we'll talk more in the future. I'm excited for you that you're back doing something that you love and helping out indie artists.